It's no longer without a roadmap.
No, it still is.
This
They just on the journey with us.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Without a Roadmap. My name is Yonas.
I'm Cameron. We're both product managers here at Parlor, which is a startup located in downtown Boston.
So this is a show for all the product people who don't have all the answers. We'll be telling the stories of the everyday PMs who don't have all the answers but still get the job done.
Yeah, so we're here to share our perspective as two earlier career PMs. We also plan to bring on others to share their stories so that we can all figure this thing out together. So today we're going to talk about how we're learning to become better PMs. I feel like we recently were discussing about how to progress in our careers, how to improve our skill set as PMs. And what we found out is that there's no really one definable skill set or definable path to becoming a better PM or moving up in your career.
Right. Yeah, so across industries, different growth stages of a company and verticals, we'll notice that there's completely different ways that product management organizations go about their work. And while that's great that your company might work in a way that makes it like flexible and works well for themselves, it could be really tough for somebody early in their careers who's trying to ground themselves in some understanding of how to do this work when everybody's doing it so differently. So that gets me thinking about like two really important things that can kind of contribute to your growth as a product manager, and that's adaptability, being able to come into the different types of organizations and kind of having the general background of knowledge of the different frameworks, ways of understanding this type of work, where you can thrive in any different organization, whether it be a big or a small, more or less agile company, and then also taking the initiative. So kind of going further from having just the required skills, but also kind of doing things outside of that to make sure that you're moving the company forward and, always doing things that help the company progress. And that can be done in a number of different ways. And, we see that as PMs at a super early stage startup where, there's much more than just product related work that's gonna, that we have a, good background skill set to help with.
Yeah, I think that getting the different experience is super critical, especially earlier in your career, because I feel like sometimes when you're starting out, you get so tunnel vision on trying to go to do reach a specific title. So say you're in finance, you want to reach like the senior financial analyst, or you're an early PM, associate product manager, you want to reach that product manager or senior product manager role. And sometimes in order to get there, you might have to pivot and take on other roles and responsibilities in order to just expand your skill set. So yeah, that's my take on it. I feel like I was pretty narrow of how I wanted to progress my career when I first got out of college, and now I'm definitely more open to getting more experiences in the different areas of a business.
Yeah, and something I actually came across more recently and found useful in kind of getting a better understanding of where you are in your stage, and as a product manager, kind of as your growth in the role is looking at the career ladders. Different companies, larger companies in particular, have kind of established roles or like characteristics of a PM at every different stage within the company. So from associate PM.
That's definitely a good point. So I know you came from like another small startup before joining Parlor, but while you were interviewing, I'm sure you were coming across a range of different size of companies. How did you think about how you would fit in within that? How would your previous experience as a PM at an early startup at Firecracker, how did you think that would translate over to either a company of similar size or a bigger company when you were interviewing?
Yeah. So going into the interviews and, after coming from a smaller company, from a startup, 2 years of PM experience under my belt, thinking that I could kind of transition into another PM role rather seamlessly, kind of had a little bit of, a shock when I realized that wasn't going to be the case. There was a lot of things that I needed to kind of ground myself in before actually taking that jump. And so I think it was useful to have the background as, a startup PM, because I had a great understanding, like had great kind of like business sense. But when it came to a lot of like the specifics that bigger companies were expecting, and kind of, the ability to write in a way, or, translate stories in a way that is, expected at larger companies, is completely different. So that kind of made me realize that I had to kind of do a lot of that extra work outside of work, and kind of grounding myself in those best practices and the different frameworks, and thinking about product management. And so that required, reading books, taking online courses, things of that nature.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean,
dedication right there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. These are self-paced online courses. So, I didn't go to like General Assembly or, do a product school or anything like that. I'd be curious to hear about people's experiences doing programs like
sure.
that.
Yeah.
But, I just did, kind of what I felt would, help prepare me for the interviews. And then, a whole another conversation is like how much like is your preparation for the interview actually going to be relevant towards your actual day-to-day as a PM. It's definitely something we could think about. But I'm curious to hear from your perspective, coming from a larger company, if you felt like that prepared you, for work at a smaller company, at a startup, if that transition was seamless. Do you feel like you came prepared?
I wouldn't say it was seamless. There's definitely differences between a larger and a smaller company, and the product I was working on is also very different. It's more analytical and dealing with like patient data and all that stuff. So the data has to be right, and so that kind of forces the product to move slower. Whereas at Parlor, like we move super quick. Like I'm sure we've transitioned the direction of the product, not the direction, but like focusing different features and prioritizing different features and functionality like that. Like it's been super quick. So I feel like that was a bit of an adjustment, but I like moving faster. I feel like it's a lot more fun. I think what the biggest adjustment for me was how we do like the day-to-day PM stuff here. Like at previous company, it was more regimented. Like we were trying to do the whole agile methodology by the book, and so you have all the sprint stuff, all the scrum stuff. So you have like the sprint retrospective, the sprint backlog grooming, sprint refinement, and all that fun stuff. And then even when you're writing stories, we were being taught to write them like in the very like scrum followed by the book way. So like as a user, I want to do this, so this needs to happen, if that's even the correct way. So, but like here, we don't do that at all. Like writing the stories is like completely different, and like how we do product is like completely different, which was a bit of an adjustment, but I feel like I'm kind of catching my stride.
Yeah, and that goes back to the adaptability. I think, working with a smaller team, I mean, maybe this isn't specific to smaller teams, but, us in particular, working with offshore engineers kind of changes the way that we go about the, working with developers. And I think that's interesting. And there's probably, some, like a unique aspect there to us, but, when they don't speak English as the first language, then you have to be super clear, and the formatting might not be is what you might have expected in your last role.
Yeah, so like writing the stories in my last role was like, as I said, very by the book, Scrum related. Here, I thought I would be able to do the same thing. And then so Keith showed us an example of how he writes stories before we joined to hand off to the engineering team. And like it was completely different. Like everything about it was just so different. And so I tried to emulate that, thinking I'd be able to just catch on pretty quick because I'm used to writing stories. And after reviewing my first stories here the first week at Parlor, the first like minute, he goes, "Yeah, this is awful. Like, redo the whole thing."
What was the actual word he said?
I think he said, "This is like shitty."
Yeah. He said the same thing to me. So.
Yeah. So first week, it was a rough go, and the whole product stuff. But like you said, it's pretty much adapting to how he does it and just trying to learn on the fly and being very coachable. And I feel like now we've gotten to a point where he doesn't really need to review the stories as much. It's more so just making sure we understand the product, and then if we understand the product, we can obviously translate that into good stories for the engineering team to act on.
Right. Yeah. It's also like another thing that you may notice, like in working with big companies, they might have a lot of data that they can work with which like will actually like dictate product decisions. Whereas, smaller companies working with smaller data, like amount of data, a lot of the decisions you make might be more like gut instinct based. And I feel like that requires like a whole different side of your brain in order, I think you're expected to have kind of like a stronger business sense and, understanding of the customer when you're kind of building things from the ground up. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of, I think, a useful aspect of working in a smaller company. Is
Yeah, for sure.
Getting much closer to, empathizing with your users.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So kind of on that point, that there, we just talked about, there's really like no roadmap or skill set that is expected, that can really be expected from any specific PM, just because every organization works so differently. So I'm curious what you think are kind of some of the best practices, or maybe like one main thing that you would recommend somebody does in order to progress themselves, or to show improvement over the course of a new role.
I would just say, like, from my personal experience, just always having the willingness to just do whatever is necessary. And so if you go to a different product organization, or you get put on a different team, they may work completely different, like how we're talking about, and just like having the mindset, like, all right, they work this way, I'm going to figure out how to do it that way, and so that we can move forward in the direction that we need to go to. And so if you go in kind of stubborn and say, no, like, it should be done this way and that way, because that's how I had success previously, like, you're working with completely different people, new company, new team, new product maybe. You need to have the mindset of, all right, I need to work with my team, be super positive, be super enthusiastic, and bring great energy to the team in order to kind of just move everybody forward, to kind of like collaborate, get everybody on the same page. Like, hey, we're all assuming positive intent. That's another big buzzword, something like we try to hold ourselves accountable to at Parlor. And so I feel like if you have that mindset, and just, that's probably the most transferable skill to me, just having a good mindset and always assuming a positive intent.
Yeah, being easy to get along with is always going to be a skill that's actually pretty rare.
Yeah, a
rare.
smile goes a long way.
But yeah, it's super important, especially for product managers, is gaining the respect and admiration of the internal stakeholders, and that can be done in a number of ways. But just being pleasant to be around, which clearly Cam is. It definitely helps. It goes a long way.
I try.
Yeah,
but I would say, so since there's no, like, from our experience perspective, there's no like transferable skills so far earlier in your career. How would you go about progressing your career? Like, what are your early thoughts about taking the next steps, either here at Parlor or in your career in general?
Yeah, I think probably the most important thing to me has been my access to a really strong mentor in the product space. So Keith, the CEO of Parlor, previously my boss at Firecracker, last company I worked for, and throughout that time we developed a great relationship, and he's become a mentor of mine, kind of taught me a lot of what I know, and so being able to work with him again here and kind of continue that is one of the main reasons I came here, is because having access to that mentorship is really, to me, the most valuable thing you can get out of a role,
sure.
Especially early in your career. So, the feedback sessions that we have, where I'm gonna get this blunt, unfiltered feedback from him on like what I need to do differently, what I need to do better, is basically the best experience I could get possible.
Yeah.
And this is coming from somebody who's kind of well known in the space, and definitely has a good grasp of the best practices, and so I think it's definitely rare getting access to somebody who's willing to help you along the way, but also wants to see you progress,
and is your direct manager,
and is your direct
because I feel like early in your career there could be that awkward manager direct report relationship where obviously you're early in your career, you want to go, you want to progress, get promoted, get more responsibilities, do all the fun stuff. But sometimes I feel like managers can lose sight of that because they're busy with their responsibilities. They're trying to deliver on their expected tasks from their direct report, or from their managers and executive leadership. So I feel like sometimes in those one-on-one sessions, it's more about, all right, how is this client doing? How are you doing on this product? Instead of focusing on all right, how can I help you and coach you to be the best product manager, customer success, financial person that you can be in your career? So either we can promote you and you're ready to step up and take more responsibility within the company, or even if they can't promote you, having that openness to say, all right, I don't think we can promote you within this specific time frame. So if that doesn't work for you, we can try to see, I can try to help you out and get you a role somewhere else where you can continue to grow and expand.
Right.
I feel like that having that relationship with the manager is super important to me early in my career.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the interview process, actually, I actively turned down opportunities at places where I felt like, I didn't see somebody, managing me that I wanted to grow with or learn from.
Yeah.
And, just being, 3-4 years into my career as a PM, that's still
3
something
years?
that
Damn.
yeah, I mean,
It's been 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, we graduated 2017, so
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy to think of, but there's still so much to learn. We're still so young, and because of that, I feel like, in this role, I wanted to continue to work under somebody who I felt like I could really learn from, and that's why I think this is such a great opportunity.
That was why I was so excited to join the team at Parlor, because Keith, when I first met him, he was all about becoming a mentor and just saying, like, even in interviews, like, if you don't get hired here, I'll help you get a role somewhere else. And then once I accepted the offer, he even from day one was always about making sure I become a bad PM. I'm gonna keep it nice and clean,
verbatim.
And so that either I grow my career here at Parlor, or that I'm getting poached by some of the best product teams in the country. So I feel like that relationship, and even with Jonah, he's always asking me about what do I want to learn better about. We had a one-on-one with him recently. He the first thing he asked is like, what can I do to help you learn better and grow your skill set as a PM at Parlor? So I feel like having that relationship is super, super helpful.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up.
Yeah.
So if you have any thoughts about a good skill set for a PM, or any transferable skills for PMs, or if you have any thoughts of how to get promoted internally as a product manager, we'd love to hear all that stuff and get all the answers out.
And if you're one of our 12 viewers currently, thank you for listening, and please share with your friends. Let us know if you'd like to come on the show. We'd love to have you.
Subscribe.